on very strong, Mrs. Varden wept and laughed and sobbed and shivered and hiccuped and choked and said she knew it was very foolish, but she couldn't help it, and that when she was dead and gone perhaps they would be sorry for it, which really under the circumstances did not appear quite so probable as she seemed to think, with a great deal more to the same effect. In a word, she passed with great decency through all the ceremonies incidental to such occasions, and being supported upstairs was deposited in a highly spasmodic state on her own bed, where Miss Miggs shortly afterwards flung herself upon the body. The philosophy of all this was that Mrs. Varden wanted to go to Chigwell, that she did not want to make any concession or explanation, that she would only go on being implored and entreated to do so, and that she would accept no other terms. Accordingly, after a vast amount of moaning and crying upstairs, and much damping of foreheads, and vinegering of temples, and hartshorning of noses, and so forth, and after most pathetic adjurations from Miggs, assisted by warm brandy and water, not over weak, and divers other cordials, also of a stimulating quality, administered at first in teaspoonfuls, and afterwards in increasing doses, and of which Miss Miggs herself partook as a preventive measure, for fainting is infectious. After all these remedies, and many more too numerous to mention but not to take, had been applied, and many verbal consolations, moral, religious, and miscellaneous, had been superadded thereto, the locksmith humbled himself, and the end was gained. "If it's only for the sake of peace and quietness, father," said Dolly, urging him to go upstairs. "Oh, Doll, Doll," said her good-natured father, "if you ever have a husband of your own—" Dolly glanced at the glass. "Well, when you have," said the locksmith, "never faint, my darling. More domestic unhappiness has come of easy fainting, Doll, than from all the greater passions put together. Remember that, my dear. If you would be really happy, which you never can be if your husband isn't, and a word in your ear, my precious, never have a Miggs about you." With this advice he kissed his blooming daughter on the cheek, and slowly repaired to Mrs. Varden's room, where that lady, lying all pale and languid on her couch, was refreshing herself with a sight of her last new bonnet, which Miggs, as a means of calming her scattered spirits, displayed to the best advantage at her bedside. "Here's master, Mim," said Miggs. "Oh, what a happiness it is when man and wife come round again! Oh, gracious, to think that him and her should ever have a word together!" In the energy of these sentiments, which were uttered as an apostrophe to the heavens in general, Miss Miggs perched the bonnet on the top of her own head, and folding her hands turned on her tears. "I can't help it!" cried Miggs. "I couldn't, if I was to be drownded in 'em. She has such a forgiving spirit. She'll forget all that is past and go along with you, sir. Oh, if it was to the world's end she'd go along with you!" Mrs. Varden, with a faint smile, gently reproved her attendant for this enthusiasm, and reminded her at the same time that she was far too unwell to venture out that day. "Oh, no, you're not, Mim, indeed you're not," said Miggs. "I repeal to master. Master knows you're not, Mim. The hair and motion of the shay will do you good, Mim, and you must not give way, you must not, really. She must keep up, mustn't she, sir, for all our sakes? I was a-telling her that just now. She must remember us, even if she forgets herself. Master will persuade you, Mim, I'm sure. There's Miss Dolly's a-going, you know, and master, and you, and all so happy and so comfortable. Oh!" cried Miggs, turning on the tears again, previous to quitting the room in great emotion, "I never see such a blessed one as she is for the forgiveness of her spirit. I never, never, never did. Not more did master neither. No, nor no one. Never." For 5 minutes or thereabouts Mrs. Varden remained mildly opposed to all her husband's prayers that she would oblige him by taking a day's pleasure, but relenting at length she suffered herself to be persuaded, and granting him her free forgiveness, the merit whereof, she meekly said, rested with the manual and not with her, desired that Miggs might come and help her dress. The handmaid attended promptly, and it is but justice to their joint exertions to record that when the good lady came downstairs in course of time, completely decked out for the journey, she really looked as if nothing had happened, and appeared in the very best health imaginable. As to Dolly, there she was again, the very pink and pattern of good looks, in a smart little cherry-coloured mantle, with a hood of the same drawn over her head, and upon the top of that hood a little straw hat trimmed with cherry-coloured ribbons, and worn the merest trifle on one side. Just enough, in short, to make it the wickedest and most provoking headdress that ever malicious milliner devised. And not to speak of the manner in which these cherry-coloured decorations brightened her eyes, or vied with her lips, or shed a new bloom on her face, she wore such a cruel little muff, and such a heart-rending pair of shoes, and was so surrounded and hemmed in, as it were, by aggravations of all kinds, that when Mr. Tappertit, holding the horse's head, saw her come out of the house alone, such impulses came over him to decoy her into the chaise and drive off like mad, that he would unquestionably have done it but for certain uneasy doubts besetting him as to the shortest way to Gretna Green, whether it was up the street or down, or up the right-hand turning or the left, and whether, supposing all the turnpikes to be carried by storm, the blacksmith in the end would marry them on credit, which by reason of his clerical office appeared, even to his excited imagination, so unlikely that he hesitated. And while he stood hesitating and looking post-chaises and six at Dolly, out came his master and his mistress and the constant Miggs, and the opportunity was gone for ever. For now the chaise creaked upon its springs, and Mrs. Varden was inside, and now it creaked again, and more than ever, and the locksmith was inside, and now it bounded once, as if its heart beat lightly, and Dolly was inside, and now it was gone, and its place was empty, and he and that dreary Miggs were standing in the street together. The hearty locksmith was in as good a humour as if nothing had occurred for the last 12 months to put him out of his way. Dolly was all smiles and graces, and Mrs. Varden was agreeable beyond all precedent. As they jogged through the streets, talking of this thing and of that, who should be descried upon the pavement but that very coachmaker, looking so genteel that nobody would have believed he had ever had anything to do with a coach but riding in it, and bowing like any nobleman. To be sure, Dolly was confused when she bowed again, and to be sure the cherry-coloured ribbons trembled a little when she met his mournful eye, which seemed to say, "I have kept my word, I have begun, the business is going to the devil, and you're the cause of it." There he stood rooted to the ground, as Dolly said, like a statue, and, as Mrs. Varden said, like a pump, till they turned the corner, and when her father thought it was like his impudence, and her mother wondered what he meant by it, Dolly blushed again till her very hood was pale. But on they went, not the less merrily for this, and there was the locksmith in the incautious fullness of his heart, pulling up at all manner of places, and evincing a most intimate acquaintance with all the taverns on the road, and all the landlords and all the landladies, with whom indeed the little horse was on equally friendly terms, for he kept on stopping of his own accord. Never were people so glad to see other people as these landlords and landladies were to behold Mr. Varden and Mrs. Varden and Miss Varden. And wouldn't they get out, said one, and they really must walk upstairs, said another, and she would take it ill and be quite certain they were proud if they wouldn't have a little taste of something, said a third, and so on, that it was really quite a progress rather than a ride, and one continued scene of hospitality from beginning to end. It was pleasant enough to be held in such esteem, not to mention the refreshments. So Mrs. Varden said nothing at the time, and was all affability and delight. But such a body of evidence as she collected against the unfortunate locksmith that day, to be used thereafter as occasion might require, never was got together for matrimonial purposes. In course of time, and in course of a pretty long time too, for these agreeable interruptions delayed them not a little, they arrived upon the skirts of the forest, and riding pleasantly on among the trees, came at last to the Maypole, where the locksmith's cheerful "Yo-ho!" speedily brought to the porch old John, and after him young Joe, both of whom were so transfixed at sight of the ladies that for a moment they were perfectly unable to give them any welcome, and could do nothing but stare. It was only for a moment, however, that Joe forgot himself, for speedily reviving he thrust his drowsy father aside, to Mr. Willet's mighty and inexpressible indignation, and darting out, stood ready to help them to alight. It was necessary for Dolly to get out first. Joe had her in his arms, yes, though for a space of time no longer than you could count one in, Joe had her in his arms. Here was a glimpse of happiness. It would be difficult to describe what a flat and commonplace affair the helping Mrs. Varden out afterwards was, but Joe did it, and did it too with the best